The scent of rain mixed with gasoline filled the night air. Detective Lisa Monroe stood next to the flickering crime scene tape, her eyes fixed on the lifeless body under the tarp. The street was silent except for the distant hum of traffic. Across from her, Jack Norton approached slowly, his suit slightly wrinkled, his face shadowed with exhaustion. "Another one?" Jack asked, lighting a cigarette. His hand trembled, betraying the calm tone of his voice. Lisa nodded, her eyes narrowing. "Witness number 2. Same pattern. Dead before they could testify. Subtle enough not to raise alarms at first, but we're onto something, Jack." Jack took a long drag from his cigarette, his mind racing. 2 witnesses. 2 key testimonies, both silenced before they could take the stand. This wasn't a coincidence, it was a message. "You realize what this means, don't you?" Jack's voice was low, barely above a whisper. "They're cleaning house. Anyone who gets close to the truth ends up like this," Lisa interrupted, kicking at a pebble on the ground. "But I don't understand why someone would go this far. The case wasn't that big. At least not on the surface." Jack exhaled smoke into the damp air, his eyes scanning the alley. The case he had been hired to defend seemed simple, a corporate fraud charge against a mid-level executive. But now, with 2 dead witnesses, everything was spiraling out of control. "Look, Lisa," Jack said, turning to her, "this is way bigger than fraud. Someone doesn't want these people to talk. If they're willing to kill, it's because they're hiding something worth dying for." Lisa looked at Jack, her expression hardening. "So what do we do? Wait for another body to show up? Or dig deeper and end up in a body bag ourselves?" Jack flicked his cigarette to the ground, crushing it under his heel. His jaw clenched. "We dig. And we dig fast." As Jack walked away from the crime scene, his phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number, *, "You're in too deep. Back off now, or you'll regret it." *. His stomach tightened, but he didn't stop walking. The game was already in motion, and pulling back now wasn't an option. He had to find out who was behind the murders before they silenced him too. Little did he know, the closer he got, the further the truth would slip away. Jack sat in his dimly lit office, staring at the case files scattered across his desk. The rain pattered softly against the window, creating a rhythm that did little to calm his nerves. His eyes traced over the names of the 2 dead witnesses, their faces now haunting his thoughts. He knew he was missing something, some small, critical detail that could unravel the mystery. A knock on the door interrupted his thoughts. Jack glanced at the clock. 10:15 p.m. No one came by his office this late. He stood up cautiously and opened the door to find a woman standing in the hallway, her soaked trench coat clinging to her frame. "I need to talk," she said, her voice trembling slightly. "Now." Jack gestured for her to enter, watching as she walked in, her eyes scanning the room before settling on him. She was young, probably in her mid-30s, with dark hair pulled back into a tight bun. There was something familiar about her, but Jack couldn't place it. "You're Claire Benson, aren't you?" Jack asked, recognizing the name from his list of potential witnesses. She wasn't on the stand yet, but she was important, critical, even. She nodded, sitting down slowly, her hands gripping the armrests of the chair as if she were trying to keep herself grounded. "I know who's behind the murders," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. Jack's heart raced, but he remained calm on the surface. "Who?" he asked, sitting across from her, leaning forward slightly. Claire hesitated, her eyes darting to the door as if someone could burst in at any moment. "It's not just about the fraud case. That's the distraction. The real money, it's in the witness payoffs. They're bribing key witnesses to change their testimony, and the ones who refuse end up dead." Jack finished for her, his mind working through the implications. "But who's pulling the strings? The CEO? The board?" Claire shook her head. "No. It's bigger than that. This goes beyond the company. It's a network, Jack. Judges, cops, high-level politicians. They've been paying off witnesses in high-profile cases for years, making sure the right people win in court." Jack sat back, stunned. "And you're sure? You have proof?" She nodded again, reaching into her coat and pulling out a small flash drive. "This has everything. Names, bank transfers, encrypted messages. It's all there." Jack reached for the flash drive, but Claire pulled it back. "I can't stay long," she said, her voice shaking now. "They know I have this. If I don't disappear tonight, I'll be next." Jack's mind raced. "Where will you go?" "Somewhere they can't find me," she said, standing up quickly. "But you have to promise me something, Jack. Use this. Expose them. Don't let them bury the truth." Before Jack could respond, Claire turned and walked out of the office, disappearing into the rain-soaked night. Jack stared at the flash drive in his hand, feeling the weight of what he was now holding. If what Claire said was true, this wasn't just about one case, it was about corruption on a massive scale. His phone buzzed again. Another message from the same unknown number, last warning. Walk away, or you're next. Jack's hand tightened around the phone. The threat was real, and now he had proof. But the deeper he went, the more dangerous it became. He glanced at the flash drive one last time before slipping it into his pocket. This wasn't over. Not by a long shot. The morning sun barely broke through the dense clouds as Jack parked his car outside Lisa Monroe's apartment. He hadn't slept. His mind was consumed by Claire's revelations and the flash drive burning a hole in his jacket pocket. If what was on it was as explosive as she claimed, they had no time to lose. Lisa answered the door, her eyes red from a lack of sleep, coffee in hand. You look like hell, Jack. What's going on? I need you to see something, Jack said, walking past her into the apartment. He pulled out the flash drive, waving it in front of her. Claire Benson came to me last night. She has proof. Witnesses in high-profile cases are being bribed, or worse, killed. Lisa's expression hardened as she closed the door behind her. Benson? The missing potential witness? Where is she now? Gone. She said they'd come for her if she didn't disappear, Jack replied, handing her the flash drive. She left me with this. Lisa raised an eyebrow. Proof, huh? Or is this just another dead end? We're about to find out, Jack said, motioning towards her laptop. Plug it in. Lisa sat down at her desk and inserted the flash drive. Her fingers danced over the keys as she opened the files. Jack leaned in, his pulse quickening as the first document opened, a spreadsheet of payments. Massive sums of money funneled to witnesses, all connected to prominent legal cases across the state. Jesus, Lisa muttered. These are bribes. This one right here, it's tied to the Simmons case last year. A star witness flipped overnight. It never made sense why, but now. She trailed off, scrolling through the pages. Judges, lawyers, cops, this is a web of corruption. Jack stared at the screen, his mind spinning. It goes all the way to the top, Lisa. If we don't move fast, someone's going to bury this. She yanked the flash drive out of the laptop, but the damage was done. Her screen went black, the system locked. Whoever's running this operation, they just traced us. We need to move, Jack said, grabbing the flash drive. If they know we're digging, they'll come for us next. Before Lisa could respond, her phone buzzed. She glanced at the screen and cursed under her breath. It's the precinct. We've got another body. Jack felt a chill run down his spine. Who? Mark Weller. The attorney who represented the first dead witness. Lisa's voice was tight with tension. They found him in his office. Shot twice in the chest. Their cleaning house. Jack's voice was barely a whisper. Lisa grabbed her coat, slipping her gun into its holster. We need to get to his office before they sweep it clean. If Weller knew something, maybe there's more proof. Jack nodded, his mind racing. Let's go. As they headed for the door, Jack's phone buzzed. Another message, we warned you. This is your last chance. Jack looked at Lisa. They're not bluffing, are they? No, Lisa said, her voice steely. They're not. The stakes were higher now. Weller's murder wasn't just another coincidence. It was part of a larger plan, and Jack was running out of time to expose it. They raced down the stairs, every instinct screaming that someone was watching, waiting for the next move. As they sped through the streets towards Weller's office, Jack's thoughts were interrupted by a question that gnawed at him. Who was really pulling the strings? Was Claire's information enough to blow the case wide open, or was there another layer of deception waiting for them? The answers were closer than ever, but so was the danger. The elevator doors creaked open to the dimly lit hallway of Mark Weller's office building. Jack and Lisa exchanged a glance before stepping out, both tense, their senses heightened. They had arrived before the police, but the eerie silence in the corridor unnerved them. Weller's office is at the end, Lisa whispered, her hand resting on her holstered gun. Stay sharp. They moved quietly down the hall, the only sound their muffled footsteps on the carpet. As they approached the door, Jack noticed it was slightly ajar. Lisa held up a hand, signaling Jack to stop. She edged toward the door, pushing it open with her foot. Inside, the office was a mess, papers scattered across the floor, drawers pulled out, the stench of gunpowder still hanging in the air. But the most striking detail was Weller's body slumped over his desk, blood pooling beneath him. Clear, Lisa said, stepping in cautiously, her eyes scanning for any signs of movement. Jack followed, his pulse racing. Whoever did this wasn't looking for money, Jack muttered, his eyes darting over the overturned desk. They were after something specific. Lisa knelt beside Weller's body, grimacing. 2 clean shots, just like the others. Whoever this is, they're professionals. Jack moved around the desk, his eyes scanning the floor. Then something caught his attention, a black leather-bound notebook wedged between the desk and the wall. He crouched down and pulled it free, flipping through the pages. "I think I found something," Jack said, standing up and handing the notebook to Lisa. "Looks like Weller kept detailed notes on the cases he worked, including the one that links him to our dead witnesses." Lisa flipped through the pages quickly, her eyes narrowing as she read. "Look at this. Weller wrote about receiving an anonymous tip a few days ago. He suspected someone was tampering with evidence in the fraud case. He planned to confront the other attorneys at a meeting this week." "Who gave him the tip?" Jack asked, peering over her shoulder. Lisa shook her head. "It doesn't say. But he had circled a date, yesterday. That's when he was supposed to meet someone named G." She paused, her face growing pale. G could be Gregory Walker. Jack's heart sank. "The district attorney?" Lisa nodded. "Weller mentioned meeting Walker in several entries, all related to this case. If Walker's involved in witness tampering, we're dealing with corruption at the highest level." Before Jack could respond, the sound of heavy footsteps echoed in the hallway outside the office. Lisa shot him a look. "We're not alone." Jack quickly stuffed the notebook into his jacket as Lisa reached for her gun. She motioned for him to stay low as they moved toward the back of the office, ducking behind a bookshelf just as the door creaked open. Two men in dark suits entered the office, their faces shadowed. Jack could see the outline of guns under their jackets. They were calm, methodical, as they began searching the office, rifling through drawers and papers. "They're cleaners," Lisa whispered, her voice barely audible. "They're here to wipe any trace of evidence." Jack's heart pounded in his chest. If they were caught, there was no doubt in his mind these men would kill them. He watched as one of the men moved toward Weller's desk, pulling a phone from his pocket and snapping photos of the scene. "We need to get out of here," Jack whispered, inching toward the door that led to the back staircase. Lisa nodded, her eyes never leaving the men. "On my count. 3, 2, 1. They moved swiftly, slipping through the door just as one of the men turned in their direction. Jack held his breath, waiting for the sound of footsteps chasing after them, but none came. They hurried down the stairwell, their footsteps echoing in the narrow space. As they reached the street, Jack's phone buzzed again. He pulled it out, dread pooling in his stomach. Another message, *, "You think you're safe? You have no idea who you're dealing with. *. Jack looked up at Lisa, his face pale. "They're everywhere, Lisa. We need to figure out our next move before they take us out too." Lisa nodded, her jaw clenched. "We go to Walker. If the district attorney is involved, we're going straight to the source. But we have to be smart about this. One wrong step and we're dead." Jack took a deep breath, knowing the stakes had never been higher. Gregory Walker was powerful, and if he was behind this, they were up against a force far greater than they could have imagined. But there was no turning back now. They had the proof, and they were running out of time. The real question was, how far would Walker go to protect his secrets? The city courthouse loomed ahead, a stark contrast to the overcast sky. Jack and Lisa stood across the street, watching as attorneys and officials filtered in and out. Gregory Walker's office was on the top floor, and just the thought of confronting him made Jack's pulse quicken. The man had power, too much of it. "Are you sure about this?" Jack asked, his voice laced with hesitation. "If Walker's involved, we could be walking into a trap." Lisa didn't flinch. "We have no choice, Jack. We've got the notebook, we've got the flash drive. If we don't act now, they'll keep coming for us. Besides, we need to know just how deep Walker's involvement goes. If he's dirty, we blow this whole thing wide open." Jack nodded, his mind still racing with doubts. "And if he's innocent?" Lisa shot him a hard look. "Then we'll figure it out. But right now, he's our only lead." With that, they crossed the street, blending into the stream of people heading into the courthouse. Inside, the air was thick with the smell of polished wood and legal tension. Jack's nerves were on edge as they made their way to the elevators, his eyes scanning the faces around them, half expecting to see one of Walker's men ready to pounce. As the elevator doors slid open on the top floor, Jack's heart skipped a beat. Walker's office was straight ahead, the large wooden doors ominous and foreboding. They walked down the hallway, their footsteps unnervingly loud in the empty corridor. Lisa knocked once, firm and deliberate. Moments later, the door opened, revealing Gregory Walker himself, standing tall in a crisp suit, his expression unreadable. "Jack Norton," Walker said, his voice smooth but carrying an undercurrent of something darker. "And Detective Monroe. What brings you two to my office unannounced?" Jack swallowed hard. "We need to talk. Privately." Walker raised an eyebrow, his gaze flicking between Jack and Lisa. "Of course. Come in." He stepped aside, ushering them into the spacious, well-appointed office. The door clicked shut behind them, and Walker took a seat behind his massive oak desk, gesturing for them to sit. Jack and Lisa remained standing. We know about the bribed witnesses, Lisa began, cutting straight to the chase. And we know you've met with Mark Weller several times about the case. Walker's eyes narrowed, but his expression remained calm. Weller's dead, isn't he? His voice was cold, detached. I heard the news this morning. And you didn't think to mention your connection to him? Jack pressed, his anger barely contained. Walker leaned back in his chair, steepling his fingers. What exactly are you accusing me of, Norton? Lisa pulled the notebook from her coat and tossed it onto the desk. Weller was investigating a massive conspiracy involving witness tampering and bribery. He had meetings scheduled with you, and now he's dead. We think you know more than you're letting on. For the first time, Walker's calm facade cracked. He picked up the notebook, flipping through the pages with an increasingly tense expression. You think I'm involved in this? Walker asked, his voice tight. You think I would risk my entire career for a couple of bribed witnesses? Jack stepped forward, his eyes locked onto Walker's. We don't think, Walker. We know. We have the proof. Weller kept detailed records of every meeting, every transaction. He circled your name, your initials, GW, in connection with the payouts. Walker's face darkened, and for a moment, Jack thought he saw a flicker of panic. But then, just as quickly, Walker's composure returned, and he smiled, a slow, dangerous smile. You've made a terrible mistake, Jack, Walker said, leaning forward, his voice low. You don't know what you're stepping into. This is bigger than you, bigger than me. The people behind this, they're not just going to let you walk out of here. Lisa's hand instinctively moved to her holster, but Walker raised a hand, signaling he wasn't about to get physical. If I were you, I'd take whatever evidence you have and walk away. Disappear. Because the moment you dig any deeper, they'll come for you. Jack felt a chill crawl down his spine. Who's they, Walker? Who are you protecting? Walker's smile widened. You think this is about me? I'm just a cog in the machine. There are others, people far more powerful than me, who are invested in keeping this quiet. People who can make you disappear without a trace. Jack clenched his fists. So you admit you're involved? Walker stood, walking around the desk slowly, deliberately. What I'm saying is that you're already in over your head. You think you have leverage because of a few notes from a dead man? You don't. If you keep pushing, I won't be able to protect you. No one will. Lisa stepped forward, her voice firm. We're taking this to the press, Walker. We're not scared of you or your threats. Walker's eyes gleamed with something dangerous. You should be. Just then, a knock echoed through the office. Walker's assistant opened the door, her face pale. Sir, there's someone here to see you. He says it's urgent. Walker's expression shifted, but he nodded. Send him in. A tall man in a dark suit entered the room. Jack didn't recognize him, but the air in the room instantly changed. He exuded power, the kind that made the hairs on the back of Jack's neck stand up. The man glanced at Jack and Lisa, his expression cold. Then, he turned to Walker. We need to talk. Now. Walker's jaw clenched. In a moment. The man didn't move. Now. Jack's stomach twisted as he exchanged a glance with Lisa. Whoever this man was, he wasn't just another player. He was the kind of person Walker feared. Without another word, the man stepped back, his eyes never leaving Jack and Lisa as Walker followed him out of the room, the door clicking shut behind them. Lisa looked at Jack, her voice tense. Who the hell was that? Jack shook his head, feeling a sinking sensation in his gut. I don't know, but I'm pretty sure we just met someone very close to the top of this whole thing. Jack's pulse raced as he and Lisa stood frozen in Gregory Walker's office, the silence thick and heavy after the mysterious man had entered. The encounter had left them both rattled. Whoever that man was, his presence alone had changed the dynamic completely. Lisa glanced at the door, then back to Jack. We need to get out of here, now. That guy, he's more dangerous than we thought. Jack nodded, his mind racing. We can't run. Not yet. If Walker's afraid of him, then this guy might be the one pulling the strings. He's the key to all of this. Before Lisa could respond, the door creaked open. The assistant stepped in, her face pale, her voice a whisper. Mr. Walker won't be able to speak to you further. I'm afraid he's unavailable. Jack exchanged a glance with Lisa. We'll be going, then, he said, his tone tense. They left the office swiftly, not speaking until they were outside the courthouse. The cold air hit them, but it did little to clear the tension. Lisa's hands were trembling slightly, but her voice remained steady. That wasn't a coincidence, Jack. Whoever that man is, he's dangerous. And now they know we're getting close. Jack's phone buzzed. His heart sank as he looked at the screen. Asterisk, you're running out of time. Asterisk. Jack, this isn't just about bribed witnesses anymore, Lisa said, her voice dropping. This is a conspiracy that runs deep, politics, law enforcement, maybe even beyond that. They won't stop until they've silenced anyone who knows too much. Jack clenched his jaw. We still have the flash drive, and we still have the notebook. We can go public, expose everything. And get killed before we make it to the press? Lisa shook her head. We need to think strategically. Going public now is suicide. They'll come for us, just like they did with Weller and the others. Jack's mind spun. Lisa was right, they couldn't just barge forward blindly. They needed a plan. A way to expose everything without getting themselves killed in the process. Then what do we do? Jack asked, frustration seeping into his voice. Lisa paused, her eyes scanning the street. There's someone we can trust. An investigative journalist I've worked with before, Maggie Tyler. She's relentless, and she's got contacts who can help us get this out safely. But we need to move fast before they close in. Jack exhaled, nodding. Let's go. We don't have much time. Maggie Tyler's office was tucked away in a quiet part of the city, far from the noise of corporate media. When Jack and Lisa arrived, she was already waiting for them, her face stern, yet curious. Maggie was in her 40s, sharp-eyed and no stranger to danger. Her reputation as a fearless investigative journalist had earned her enemies, but it had also earned her trust among those looking to expose corruption. Lisa told me enough to get me worried, Maggie said, not wasting time with small talk. Now I need to know the rest. Jack handed her the flash drive. This has everything. Proof of bribed witnesses, bank records, and encrypted communications between high-ranking officials. And Gregory Walker, he's part of it. Maggie inserted the drive into her laptop, her eyes narrowing as the files opened. She skimmed the documents, her fingers moving quickly across the keyboard. Jesus, she muttered, this goes deeper than I imagined. We need to move fast, Lisa said. We think someone powerful is behind this, and they're on to us. We don't have long before they come for us, too. Maggie leaned back, her eyes scanning Jack and Lisa carefully. You're right to be scared. This isn't just about silencing witnesses. This is an organized network of corruption. They're cleaning up loose ends. Jack could feel the weight of it all pressing down on him. What do we do? Maggie's fingers tapped the edge of her desk thoughtfully. I'll get this out. But we need leverage, something bigger than what's on this drive. There's one name here that keeps popping up. Walker met with someone named Gavin Ross frequently, and those meetings coincide with when witnesses went missing or changed their testimony. Who is he? Jack asked. Maggie looked up from her screen. Gavin Ross isn't just anyone. He's a lobbyist with deep ties to powerful corporations and government officials. If he's involved, then we're not just talking about legal corruption, we're talking about controlling entire judicial outcomes. Jack's stomach churned. Gavin Ross was untouchable. Powerful, wealthy, and with connections everywhere. He was the invisible hand guiding decisions in the shadows. How do we take down someone like him? Jack asked, his voice low. Maggie stood, grabbing her coat. We find the one thing men like him fear most, exposure. I'll dig into Ross. But you two, stay low. If they know you've been here, we're all targets. As they left Maggie's office, Jack couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. His phone buzzed again. Another message, *, you're next. *. Lisa looked at Jack, her eyes filled with determination. We're in this together, Jack. Whatever happens, we expose them. Jack nodded, but deep down, the dread was gnawing at him. They were up against something far bigger than they had anticipated. And now, the real danger was closing in faster than ever. The night was heavy with tension as Jack and Lisa sat in his dimly lit apartment, their nerves frayed. Every creak in the building, every car passing by outside felt like the approach of an unseen threat. The clock ticked relentlessly, reminding them how little time they had before everything unraveled. Maggie's digging into Gavin Ross as we speak, Lisa said, her voice steady, though Jack could see the flicker of fear in her eyes. If she finds something that links him directly to the murders or the bribes, we can blow this wide open. Jack stared out the window, his mind churning. But what if she doesn't? What if Ross is too careful, too well connected? He's not the type to leave a paper trail behind. Lisa didn't respond immediately, the weight of the situation settling over both of them. The reality was that Ross might be beyond reach, even with Maggie's skills. But before Jack could voice his doubts, a knock came at the door. They froze. Jack instinctively reached for the gun Lisa had insisted he keep close, while she stood, her hand already resting on her own weapon. Who is it? Jack called out, his voice tight. There was a pause, then a familiar voice. It's Maggie. Let me in. Jack unlocked the door quickly, pulling it open. Maggie stepped inside, her face pale but her eyes alive with determination. You were right, she said, her voice urgent. Gavin Ross is behind everything. The bribed witnesses, the payoffs, even the murders. I found an encrypted network of communications linking him to high-profile officials, judges, prosecutors, even police. They've been orchestrating courtroom outcomes for years, and Ross has been pulling the strings. Jack's stomach tightened. Do you have proof? Maggie nodded, handing him a folder filled with documents. Enough to bring him down. Emails, financial transfers, and a direct connection to Gregory Walker. Lisa exhaled, the tension breaking slightly. Then we have everything we need. We can take this public, press charges, get Ross arrested. But Maggie wasn't smiling. It's not that simple. Ross is already on the move. I got a tip that he's planning to flee the country. If he disappears, none of this will matter. He'll escape justice, and his network will stay intact. Jack felt a surge of anger. So what do we do? Wait until he's gone and hope we survive the fallout? Maggie shook her head. No. We leak everything tonight. I've already contacted my sources. This story is going live in less than an hour. We expose it all, Ross, Walker, the entire network. Lisa's face hardened. That'll put a target on all of us. It already has, Maggie replied, her voice grim. But if we don't act now, we lose everything. Jack glanced at the documents again, the weight of them pressing down on him. This was it, the moment they had been building toward. Once this information was out, there would be no going back. The full force of Ross's influence would come crashing down on them, and there would be no escape. Do it, Jack said quietly, looking at Maggie. Get the story out. We can't let Ross get away. Maggie nodded and stepped outside, her phone already in hand as she moved to make the final arrangements. Jack turned to Lisa, who was pacing the room, tension radiating from her. You know what's coming, right? She said, her voice barely above a whisper. Once this story hits, they'll come after us with everything they've got. We might not make it through this, Jack. Jack swallowed, feeling the weight of her words settle into his bones. I know. But we have to finish this. An hour passed. The story went live, an explosive piece that tied Ross to a sprawling conspiracy of bribery, corruption, and murder. It spread like wildfire, gripping the public with the full extent of the scandal. But as the headlines blared across every major news outlet, Jack's phone rang. It was Maggie. They're moving on Ross now, she said, her voice quick and breathless. I just got word that federal agents are closing in. But you need to get out of there. My source says Ross has already sent someone to take care of loose ends. Jack's heart raced. Where do we go? Anywhere but there, Maggie urged. I'll send a safe location. Get moving, now. He hung up, turning to Lisa, who had already heard the conversation. We need to go. They grabbed what little they could and bolted out the door. As they made their way down the stairwell, Jack's mind raced with 1,000 thoughts. What if Ross escaped? What if Maggie's story wasn't enough? What if they didn't make it out alive? As they reached the ground floor, the door to the street burst open. 2 men in dark suits stormed in, guns drawn. Jack froze, adrenaline flooding his veins. Lisa reacted first, pulling her gun and firing 2 quick shots. One of the men dropped instantly, but the other returned fire, forcing Jack and Lisa to dive behind a concrete column. We have to get out of here, Lisa shouted, reloading her gun. Jack glanced around, his heart pounding. They were trapped. The only way out was through the gunman, and the sound of more footsteps in the distance told him they were running out of time. Lisa fired another shot, forcing the man to retreat for a moment. Go, she shouted at Jack. I'll cover you. Jack hesitated, but there was no time to argue. He sprinted toward the exit, hearing the crack of gunfire behind him as Lisa held off their attackers. Bursting through the door into the cold night air, Jack looked back just in time to see Lisa hit the ground, clutching her shoulder. She had been shot. Lisa. Jack ran back to her, grabbing her arm and pulling her to her feet as more gunmen appeared at the entrance. We need to keep moving, Lisa gasped, blood seeping through her fingers as she pressed against the wound. Jack half-dragged her down the alley, desperate to escape. Sirens wailed in the distance, but the gunmen were closing in, their footsteps echoing off the brick walls. Just as they rounded the corner, a car screeched to a stop in front of them. The window rolled down, and Maggie leaned out. Get in. Without hesitation, Jack and Lisa dove into the back seat as Maggie sped off into the night, the gunman fading into the distance. Hours later, they were safe, at least for now. They were in hiding, waiting for the fallout from the story to take full effect. Ross had been arrested at a private airfield, caught trying to flee the country. His network was crumbling, and the conspiracy was unraveling before the eyes of the public. But as Jack sat in the safe house, watching the news coverage of Ross's downfall, a hollow feeling settled over him. The corruption went deeper than Ross, deeper than Walker. He knew there were others out there, waiting, watching, ready to rebuild what they had lost. This wasn't over. And it never would be. Truth is often a dangerous maze, where those who dare to seek it risk never finding their way out. Bought witnesses shows us that justice can be manipulated by invisible hands, while the world continues to believe in the system's integrity. How many times has silence been bought? How many times has the truth been buried before it even had a chance to surface? Think about it. How often is the justice we believe in actually controlled by powerful interests? What if, without realizing it, we already live in a world where the winners aren't the most righteous, but the most cunning? The pursuit of truth is always worthwhile, but at what cost? If this story has shaken your certainties, imagine what else might be hidden around us. Subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications to keep exploring the mysteries of the legal system and the battles where the right side doesn't always win. After all, truth is a currency that few know how to spend.